What's up, guys? Brady Fugel here. Welcome to another episode of Deeper Dives, the show for hardcore fans where we don't just dive deep, we dive deeper. Today we're talking French metal legends, Gojira, and with me is Chili from his channel Live Listen Erased. First of all, Chili, thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad to have you. Tell me, when did you first get into Gojira?
Interesting story because this my channel and myself have a lot of history surrounding Gojira. So I go back like I don't know, at least 10, maybe 12 years ago when a workmate tried to introduce me to Gojira, and I absolutely hated them at the time. So he's just like, "Oh, you got to check this band out. I know you like metal. This band is really cool." And I listened to I forgot what the album. I'll mention the album when it comes up. Actually, I remembered it, but I remember listening to it. And went, "No, this ain't for me." At the time. I definitely had heard a couple of their songs and I liked, a couple of tracks here and there. But it wouldn't be until a little bit after COVID, 2021, when, they released their most recent album that I really got into them. And it's interesting because, when that album it came out, my channel was still very fledgling at the time, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for my channel moving forward. And here was this album that I just wanted to talk about to people. So I actually based my very first episode of 5 minute reviews on Gojira's album Fortitude. A little bit of history for my channel, I guess, as well. So that pretty much Fortitude spawned the entire 5 minute review series,
That's awesome.
which is an interesting one. The year after that, I think it was, I actually managed to catch them at the Good Things Festival. They performed a set during that one. That was like Bring Me the Horizon, I think, where the headliners, Gojira, were there. And I can only describe them as the second craziest mosh pit I've ever taken part of. The first being Slayer.
Okay.
But
All right.
yep, given,
Valid.
given.
Valid. Yeah.
Yep. Very valid point there. But I mean, at that mosh pit, I'm talking about, I'm going around in the mosh pit in circles there. At one point, someone clobbered my head, knocked my throat, kicked me to the ground, and then pulled me back up and said, "You want to go again?" I'm like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
Awesome. Love that.
And and I remember just like taking a step back for a moment, and out of the corner of my eye, there was someone doing like this. He's like, "Hey, hey, hey!" And his mate ran at him from like 20 meters away, launched him dead set like 10 meters into the crowd, just launched him. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, it is absolute craziness.
Awesome.
And then during a very certain song, someone just goes, row the boat. And everyone just got on the ground and started rowing the boat. I'm just like, I've never experienced it, but it was amazing. They put on a great set. So I've been a fan, to answer your question, for only a very short period, maybe about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, the great story. First of all, that's fucking
Thank you.
awesome. So for me, I'm also a relatively new fan. I first discovered the band when they released Magma in 2016. And I remember it was the songs, which I'm sure this is how like hundreds of people at least. I'm sure this is how so many current fans of the band got into them. It's because I
Mm.
heard Stranded and Silvera. Those were the two songs that hooked me instantly when Magma was coming
Yeah.
out. And then like at the time, actually, I wasn't crazy about the whole record. It was those two songs, and then it was Only Pain. Those were like the three songs that really hooked me right away from that album. So
Mm.
in a way, kind of similar to you. Like it wasn't instant for me. Like I wasn't crazy about it on the first try. But that was back in 2016 when I listened to mostly radio rock type stuff. Um,
Uh,
yeah, so that was like those two
the
songs.
transition.
Those two songs are perfect metal gateways because they're so hooky and so catchy, so like condensed and straightforward, like radio rock is, but like they still bring the grooves. They still sound like pure Gojira. So yeah, so those two songs were what initially did it for me, and then actually shortly after that, I re-listened to their prior album, L'Enfant Sauvage, and that was the first album that hooked me. That album hooked me right away, like the entire thing. That was probably two
Okay.
years later, so that was probably like 2018. So I remember, yeah. So with that record, it was that was the instant one. And then over time, like especially in the last 5, 6 years or so, that's when I really started to get into both progressive and extreme metal, which is more of Gojira's calling, I guess. So I re-listened to back on their older material, and that was when it all clicked. It took kind of me evolving my music taste to really appreciate their catalog as a whole. Um,
Hmm.
and then Fortitude dropped in 2021, which I'll share my thoughts on. But yeah, that's how I first got into the band. It was Magma, and it was specifically the song "Stranded in Silvera" way back in 2016.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah, yeah. So how this is gonna go is I'm gonna be basically giving the band's history. We're gonna talk about each studio album, give our thoughts on each album chronologically. At the end of the video, we're going to give our top three Gojira songs, period. Which, Julie, I don't know about you, but they were very difficult to come up with and rank.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh my gosh. We'll get to that point, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll top three songs. Then at the end, we're gonna talk about maybe what do we want to hear from Gojira next in the future on their next album, which I think is supposed to be out this year. That's what I've heard. Yeah, fingers crossed for sure. So the band was formed and founded by brothers Joe and Mario Duplantier, who would jam together as teenagers and just decided to start a technical death metal band. They recruited guitarist Christian Andrew and bassist Alexander Corneon for the original lineup. They named themselves Godzilla and released
Yeah.
two demo albums, Victim in 1996 and Possessed in 1997. Cornelon left the band shortly after in 1998 and was replaced by Jean-Michel Labadie. I hope I'm pronouncing these names right. And that formed the band's core and still current to this day lineup. They began touring extensively, opening for other extreme metal bands throughout Europe and especially France. They released two more demo albums under the name Godzilla, titled Saturate and Wisdom Comes. In 2001, the band was legally compelled, fun fact, legally compelled to change their name, and Gojira was born. They initially asked for donations to record their debut album, Terra Incognita. The album was eventually released in March of 2001 under the band's own label, Gabriel Editions. So, Chili, what are your thoughts
Hmm.
on the debut, Terra Incognita?
To be straight up, this is my least favorite album of theirs. I think that's because when I come to Gojira and the music, I kind of discover them in reverse order. I believe that, there are certainly some fans, mega fans, who would obviously see this as the pure form of Gojira, and I don't know if they're going to be like gatekeeping, like, oh, they're never as good as, this album was, or etc. It does remind me a lot of like early Meshuggah in some of their songs, particularly, Chaos Sphere, that kind of sound like that. There is a rawness to this whole, production quality. You see that a lot with like many metal acts when they have like their debut album. The production isn't quite up to the scale of their vision that would come later on down the track. You can take many bands out of that list: Deftones, Limp
So many.
Bizkit, Mudvayne,
Lamb of God.
whoever.
Yeah. Mhm.
Lamb of God, yeah, all these guys who they release their first album, and then by the time they get into like their second and third ones, you're like, oh, this is where they clearly want to be. I don't know if that, obviously we'll talk about that in a bit, but like as far as Terra Incognita goes, this is very aggressive, very in your face. There's lots of, blast beats, kind of extreme metal. Satan is a Lawyer, for example, is just this stupidly aggressive kind of drumming pattern and stuff like that. But it doesn't really, it doesn't captivate me as much as a lot of the albums that'll come out after this one. It's very much within the confines of that extreme range that I find a little bit difficult to get into. And I'm guessing, if anyone who is into some of the more, let's call it surface level metal bands, they're going to find it difficult to say, listen to this album as the first record from Gojira to try and get into the band. I would not recommend this album as a first step.
I
You know
agree.
what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm.
For me, I think I used to kind of have similar thoughts on that. I remember when I first listened to this album, it was around the time I was trying to get into the back catalog. So this probably like 2020-ish when I really discovered all the prior records. And this record didn't do much for me at the time, but it's actually grown on me a lot over the years. I think it's underrated. And I
Mm.
think this might just be because I've grown to really like extreme metal a lot more, and especially recent years, like the last 3 or 4 years. And this album I think is interesting because like I already love Gojira and now I really love extreme metal. So this album kind of sees both of those things combined. And I liked re-listening to it, especially in preparation for this recording. I really enjoyed hearing Gojira sound a lot more extreme and just heavier overall. But then, like at the same time, you still have a song like you mentioned, "Satan is a Lawyer." That track is
Yeah.
it's like grunge meets sludge metal. Like it's a
Yeah.
totally like Gojira has never written anything else that sounds like that, and it's a really interesting song. And like there's other songs on here like I think Space Time. That's a track where like it's got some sick grooves and it's actually really reminiscent of future Gojira. Like you listen to this on this very first record and it's like, oh yeah, that's totally Gojira. Like that's recognizable. Whereas other stuff on
Mm,
here, there's other stuff that's more like Deliverance as a track that's very old school death metal. It just straight up
mm.
pure death metal, which I remember that's what I would always hear about this record, and also the Link that we'll talk about next. That it was just more. I heard this record often described as like generic death metal, and I disagree. I think maybe at times, but even a song like Deliverance, like I said, that's very old school death metal, just in its grooves and stuff. It's
Yeah,
still that's even that still sounds kind of like Gojira. I mean, the vocals are very distinct, the guitar tone, the melodies, like still very distinct stuff.
yeah, yeah. They never like I understand what you're saying with it's a generic kind of title to say, oh yeah, this is like death metal. It's not, it's always Gojira's always playing to many things, and it's always their twist at the end of the day, I think,
Yeah,
on multiple genres. This, I guess, the earlier stages is a bit more restricted, maybe,
yeah.
maybe might be the word, but yeah, they definitely put their flavor on things.
Yeah, and I do think it's their most death metal, their most extreme metal album probably
Oh
ever.
yeah.
But like you nailed it when you said it's got like that raw sound to it. It's very unfiltered. I personally enjoy hearing that, especially considering the band would become a lot more. I don't want to say polished because overall I do enjoy their production, but I like hearing them more lo-fi, a little bit more raw. And like
Okay.
you know that when you mentioned all those bands that have more of like an unrefined debut album, when I do my discography rankings, I oftentimes will skip albums like that. And sometimes which
Mm.
sometimes angers the hardcore fans, but it's because a lot of times it comes off more as like a demo than anything. But by this point,
Well, yeah, Mudvayne's the perfect example. Yeah,
yeah.
Mudvayne's debut album just sounds terrible.
And even like aside from that, like this album still, and maybe it's just because the band did release four demo albums prior when they were under
Mm.
the name Godzilla. Maybe that's why. But this album still sounds like a fully fledged out sound, a fully like it's something unique. It doesn't sound unrefined that much to me, at least. Maybe like a little in its production, but I do think that fits. But yeah, overall, like there's a lot of good stuff on here. I definitely see the Meshuggah influence, especially in the closer in the
Mm.
forest. With that song, pretty much is almost full on gent, just in its
Yeah.
really chunky riffs and
Oh, you said the word gent. That's it. The Meshuggah fans are triggered.
yep, yep. But and there's other songs on here that just have a lot of personality. Like the opener, "Clone," is fucking sick. The grooves in that song are out of this world. I think maybe the only forgettable tracks on here is for one, "Rise," just because I think the riffing is a little bit sluggish. And "Fire is Everything" like has some cool parts, but it's a bit slow moving as well. And
Mm.
I there are some notable highs on this record, like the songs we've shouted out. But I do think the record is front loaded, and I think the filler comes in towards the end. And just the many interludes and a few filler tracks do weigh it down slightly. But I overall, like, I do think this is an underrated record, and it's got some hidden gems on it. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But after the release of this record, the band acquired their own studio actually to record their second album. It took about a year, but The Link was released in April of 2003. What are your thoughts on The Link?
You know what? This was an interesting album. I did a ranking a little while back for Gojira, and not gonna lie, their first two albums are at the bottom of the list, right? The Link is
I think a lot of
one of these
people,
albums.
a lot of
Yeah,
people.
like a lot of people would see it that way. Going back and in preparation for this episode, it's kind of shining a bit of a new light on the Link. There's certainly been maybe I overlooked it at the time, when I'm listening to these songs. But for example, Remembrance is this really fantastic track, one that I couldn't really recall back in the day. And it is definitely like this brutal version of Gojira, and it's very interesting because it certainly brings in these instruments, particularly at the very end, that kind of that twang, that wang 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 wang, whatever that instrument was, that would become that would make a return actually on Fortitude.
Mhm.
So, like, you're listening to it and you're going, oh, this is certainly you can hear like the roots of the band on here,
Yeah.
and it was like one of these albums that yeah, just basically when I went back through it, I'm like, oh, like that's good, Embrace the World. Ooh, that's another one that I didn't mind there, or I think Inward Movement might have been another track I kind of like. I think it's overlooked a lot, but it's yeah, there's certainly a lot of hidden gems within this one,
Mhm.
and maybe, just maybe, it may have entered a bit more of a higher spot.
Okay.
So look, it's an interesting part of the band. Like clearly, this is the bridge between their debut album to the next one. But I I think I've overlooked it, to be honest, a lot compared to how I had appreciated it in the past. So maybe there might be a new era for what I'm listening to on the link here and really appreciating the works that they put in on here.
Hell yeah. Yeah. For me, I think this is definitely a very similar. If we were doing tier list, this would absolutely be on the same tier as the debut would for me.
Mm.
I'm not exactly sure which one I like better. I will say one thing that stuck out to me listening to all these albums like in a row is I do think compared to Terra Incognita, the debut, the production sounds a little bit weaker. I just think maybe it sounds that it has less of that rawness than Terra
Oh yeah.
Incognita did. But it sounds also like I don't know. There's not a whole lot of like fullness to make up for that at the same time. So that's how I describe it.
Yeah.
But, and this isn't a bad sounding record. It's just a notable step down for me from Terra Incognita and their
I think
future.
it's a bit bass heavy as well.
Yeah, I can see that too. I can see that too. But I mean, there's still some great songs on here. For one, the opening title track with that intro, it's almost exactly the same thing as what we would hear on The Art of Dying on Way of All Flesh, and that's something that
Ah,
I never made that connection until I was re-listening, and so I thought that was interesting. But there's some sick grooves in that song, and some of like those more melodic prog parts that would be present on their future releases. So the song's good balance. You have tracks like "Death of Me" and what was the other song? They have such good gallops to them. Indians, that's the other one. "Death of Me" and
oh
Indians,
yeah, yeah.
like
Indians was a great
really
track.
infectious,
Yeah.
just galloping paces with the rhythm section. It's super infectious. Remembrance, sick grooves in that track too. "Embrace the World." Again, a song where the entire time it's just nonstop groove after groove. Um, Wisdom Comes. That's a track that's like pure death metal again, kind of like
Yeah.
yeah, kind
Brutal
of
and
like from the
short.
last record. And it's heavy. It's so heavy it almost leans on like grindcore even at times a little bit, just in some of like the vocals and just some of the noise, all the noisiness of parts of the song. The instrumental track Dawn, which instrumentals aren't usually something I gravitate towards, but even this track on here, it's like a fun song. That's another
Mm.
interesting track on here. And there's the track Over the Flows. That's super interesting too. It's got melodic parts and almost like a punky vibe to it, which I thought was interesting. I think maybe
Okay.
the one song that didn't I wasn't really feeling and I still don't not really into is actually Inward Movement. It just comes off a little bit sluggish to me, a little bit slow paced, but it still has that menacing vibe to it. And overall, again, this is I think it'd be accurate to say this is like a somewhat underrated album. I'm not sure if I would
Yeah.
rank it higher than Terra Incognita. Those two are very close. I'll tackle that when I do a discography ranking at some point. But yeah, overall, like a pretty solid record. And
Mm,
yeah,
mm.
they continue to tour extensively after this release, playing
Oh
several
yeah.
large festivals and developing a hardcore fan base, mostly due to their live performances.
Oh
Fun
yeah.
fact: this is actually I was really interested reading this. This was like probably the most interesting thing I've ever come across on this series so far. Did you know
Okay.
that the band recorded on a whole original studio album titled "Masiste El Inferno" in May of 2003, completely live? While a production of the movie of the same name played in the background. So they actually recorded like a live studio
What?
album that was never recorded in a studio, a live like original album, I should say. So I don't know.
What, just on the spot, or is it
On
like
the spot,
they
I think they probably like wrote it, but just never recorded it in the
yeah.
studio. They just played it live. So I thought that was
Holy crap.
really interesting. And I did so much listening in preparation for this video, but I gotta see if I could find it online somewhere. I'm sure it's available somewhere. But I thought that was really interesting.
I
Uh,
hope so. That's pretty cool. Like
right?
yeah,
Like,
I've never heard
yeah.
of anything quite like that.
I did not know that at all until I was researching for this recording. So pretty cool, and that's not something you hear a lot of bands doing. Just writing a whole album for just to play it live and record it live. It's really interesting. After that,
No, they would write it for an album, but like it would come out as a soundtrack. Like Pink Floyd did a couple of those,
yeah,
but
yeah, I think it's
um
probably similar to that. Yeah, um,
yeah, but they haven't released it. They only did a
yeah,
live performance and that was it.
yeah,
How very French.
yeah. They after shortly after that, though, the band released "The Link Alive," which was a live album DVD from their
Yeah.
tour at the time. And while finishing up their next album, the band ended up playing a few of the songs live before release. I think it was "Heaviest Man of the Universe" and "Backbone" that the band was
Yeah.
playing before the album came out. But eventually, the band's third album, "From Mars to Sirius," was released in September of 2005. What are your thoughts on "From Mars to
Mm.
Sirius"?
Oh my gosh. This is one hell of a record by the band. It's where Gojira manages to perform ecdysis, basically. Thank you, Deftones, for teaching me that word. So the basically it's like shedding their skin. I feel like from Mars to Sirius is where the band managed to really fall into their own. Really, this is like what is going to be the band moving forward into the future, I feel, while it's still not completely disparaging their past. It's still got like this brutal, heavy, like death metal vibes or something from, the first two records, especially on, say, Ocean Planet, the opening track. Um, but at the same time, there's a lot of signature sounds and styles that you're going to hear moving forward, for the band. And I mean, I've always looked at the album artwork and thought, yep, this is the other band with the whale on the album cover. So yeah, this is a really, really solid album, and damn it, do I really enjoy it. This is like also the record that I feel it broke them in the scene, like it really like it helped them break through.
Yeah,
Sorry, I should be saying.
absolutely. Yeah,
Um, yeah, a lot of big tracks on here, and it's just amazing. Like I said, obviously, Ocean Planet is one hell of a track. Where Dragons Dwell is another big song as well. The Heaviest Matter of the Universe is just insane. Like just a gauntlet, running the gauntlet, I guess if you can or that one. And of course, probably one of the most iconic songs that the band had recorded and has recorded, I should probably say, Flying Whales. This very almost psychedelic to a small degree. Like it was nothing like the band had written before. This weird, airy intro and talking about the whales, obviously, and it really introduced um, a new perspective on the whole metal scene,
yeah,
that would be seen because they're talking about this whole issues of we've got to protect our planet and environmental issues and stuff like that, which is quite interesting because you don't really hear that in the metal community. Most of the time it's let's talk about nuclear war, this murders, blah blah blah, all these common tropes, and Gajira's kind of bringing in this new variable, and you're like, let's talk about the end of the world brought on through environmental issues, like a
yeah.
real prevalent
Uh,
issue in the world today.
uh,
Wow. And I mean, like there are these really good, flying whales in the wilderness and stuff like that. Amazing tracks, long tracks as well. I think the only thing I'd probably got to say that kind of holds back this album is its runtime. It is a long record. It's like 66 minutes or something like that. And I feel like there's a little bit of filler here and there with a couple of tracks. Or some songs just go a little bit too long in its runtime. I believe World to Come might have been one of those songs. But
yeah,
still, like, this is a really amazing album by the band.
yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
I mean, I think it says a lot. Just this is probably the band's most beloved album to date. I think most of their fans would agree with me on that. And
Yeah.
I'm glad, first of all, I'm glad you brought up the lyrical themes because this is definitely where Gojira really came into their own with that and gave it a bit more prominence. And
Mm,
I gotta say, like, one thing I love about Gojira in general is just that their music and the sound of their album and just the melodies they convey and just the sound, it fits those themes so well. It fits it so
mm,
well. And this album is maybe the best of that. To me, this album's a masterpiece. I fucking love it. It's one of my favorite, like it's easily one of my favorite progressive metal albums, although it's a lot more than that at the same time. This is
mm.
just they strike the perfect balance on here in every way. It definitely did. To me, it did give the band their unique sound overall, but at the same time, like listening back, I feel like it's also somewhat of a logical continuation of the Link to some degree. I do hear
Yeah.
that listening to them in order. And the band definitely dialed back the extremities and up the prog influence and up the melody quite a bit on this record, which I do think is what gave them their own sound on here. Um, but everything just to me everything just works so well. Even the instrumentals and the interludes, I fucking love on this record. Everything works so well. The movie
Yeah.
tracks for one. These maybe this is just because like these are the tracks that were maybe a bit different for the band at the time. But you shouted out Where Dragons Dwell, amazing melodies in that
Mm.
track. Ocean Planet, the opener, is awesome. Just such a moody song.
Chef's
It's one of those
kiss.
songs like this is an album that, and I often use this what I'm about to say to describe like a grunge band or like some kind of like gloomy like more down tempo band. But this album is a great album for a rainy day. It's great for a rainy day. Ocean Planet is like the perfect instance of that for me. It just fits that vibe so well. It's got this grayness to it. I love the melodies. Obviously, Flying Whales with its extended
Mm,
intros, great melodies in that track too. And then like I love how they bring those melodies back but make them heavier later on the song.
yeah.
Very great songwriting. And then World to Come and Global Warming, two songs that I think are you could validly criticize for being long, but
Mm,
I just love the melodies in them. These are songs that I hit play and I don't even think about time. I just kind of forget. This is a great album to listen to in full album context, which is usually what I do when I listen to this
okay.
record. At least if I had the time. But maybe that's why. Like I could see maybe these songs not working as much as like individual tracks, but you listen to this album front to back, like I got no criticisms for it. I got another point I want to make is for the lyrics, and this is a quote that I heard about from that lead singer Joe Duplantier said one time. He was
Mm,
asked why the band doesn't use a lot of that stereotypical extreme metal imagery in the lyrics, like the gore and the
yeah.
serial killers or whatever, like stuff like that. And Joe
Yeah.
said he had the perfect response. He said, "Real life is a lot scarier." And
Oh shit.
yeah, that's the perfect response for that. That's all I gotta say. But no, this is
I like also with the Flying Whales, there was that video clip that emerged just recently with our performing it, and they had like that little not hologram, the floating whale actually above the performance.
yeah.
If you saw the video or
I
clip
think
on
I
that
did see
one,
that.
which
I think I did see that. Yeah.
is amazing. It's
Fucking
just
sick,
incredible.
yeah. And this is an iconic album. It's hard to dispute. I've actually gone back and forth whether or not I think this is their best because I think it's really close with another one for me, which we'll discuss.
Okay.
But it's got to be this one. It's got to be this one. We'll see what happens when I make this Sky for ranking because I do think it's really close. But phenomenal, iconic record.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, after the release of this record, the band continues to tour extensively and play even larger festivals than they were already playing. They played Download Festival. Their at the time label Listenable Records also re-released both Terra Incognita and The Link, which I thought was interesting too. And the band spent the first half of 2008 recording their fourth album, and The Way of All Flesh was released in October of 2008 to further critical acclaim. What are your thoughts on The
Hmm.
Way of All Flesh?
Oh, the Way of All Flesh. This is like this is a good album. This is a really good album. I'm trying to surmise in words exactly where I feel on this one though, because it's definitely how do you follow up the predecessor? It's
Exactly.
such an incredible record from obviously it's any gargantuan task for a musician to go from this massive record that you released, high acclaim, critical praise, whatever you want to say, to then follow it up with any other record that you're going to write after that. The Way of All Flesh had a massive task in order to try and do what they were going to be doing. I feel like the band were starting to get into like some weird technicalities and weird time signatures more so with the Way of All Flesh. Obviously, we'll be mentioning one of the main songs on here, which is The Art of Dying, the near 10-minute long song, which just is one of these songs. If I don't know if you've seen the video clip, Brady, but have you? There's a YouTuber, Yogev Gabe, and he does talk about drum patterns and stuff like that. Does breakdowns. He did like breakdowns of Meshuggah's Bleed, for example. And now he's also got this video out, came out some years back, talking about the art of dying, and he broke down that iconic intro from the art of dying, and just said, "Look, this beat that is in the intro is to the time signature of 45 to 4." And it's like, what the fuck is 45 to 4 as a time signature? Well, the art of dying, if you're listening to it, is in that tempo or time signature or whatever you want to say. It is like one hell of a song. And I don't know, like I don't want to harp on it for too long, but it is insane how good that track is, obviously.
Oh yeah.
And then there's other songs like I think it was. I mean, well, the Silver Cord was a bit of an instrumental piece in between the songs, wasn't it? It
Yes.
was,
And it was
yeah. And I, I mean, I've got funny feelings about the instrumental tracks on Gojira albums. For me, they don't really add much, but I think the Silver Court's not bad. You know, Yama's Messengers as well was a song that I kind of like. You know, it's just downright
Yeah.
heavy.
Mhm.
It's just this thick, chuggy, down, down, down,
You
down.
do a stank face at it. You go like, you do a
Yeah,
stank.
like
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
ooh, and Toxic Garbage Island. Obviously, they're leaning again more heavily into the environmental issues, but like you said as well with the Joe's interview, real life is much more scarier, and obviously there's lots of issues in the world that needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
Um, at the end of the day, though, it does feel like there's a few tracks there that they do get overlooked quite a bit. It is a very long record as well. I think it's the longest one they've ever written.
Mhm.
It's, 75 minutes or something like that. So I don't often get around to listening to the entire album. There is certainly my highlights off this record, but it is a really good record, even though I don't get to play it quite as often as I admit that I should, or whatever. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, definitely some bloated sections, definitely some parts that you could cut, but well, still good effort as an overall effort. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah. I think so. This is another record that I often see as a fan favorite, but and
Hmm.
I see a lot of people even saying it's their best. I don't think it's their best. I would not
No, I wouldn't say
I would
that.
not put this towards the top for me for actually similar reasons as you because I do think I think there's a few tracks that kind of weigh it down a little bit and just are a little unexciting. For one, like the opener, Ouroboros, like that's the opening track on the record, and it doesn't inject
Yeah.
that much energy into the record. It kind of
No.
makes the album off to a flat start. And then track three kind of does that too. Sight to Behold. It's decent, it's fine, but it kind of kills off the momentum that Toxic Garbage Island put out in track two. So I think
Yeah.
there's just some pacing issues here. Yama's Messengers, it's a menacing song, but it's a little sluggish. And the I do think the highlights coming towards the end, like Vacuity has that fucking stomp to it that I think is awesome, and a really good breakdown later in the song. Even the title track, like it's 17 minutes long, and like it's way too long.
Yeah, I know, right?
But it does have some good riffs and some memorable parts that I wish were just presented in more of an accessible format so I could listen to them by themselves as opposed
Wasn't
to
there a lot of like blank in there as well? Like it's just a few minutes of
yeah,
silence somewhere
yeah,
within that.
exactly, yeah, that too. It's like
That's old school. That's old school CD technology
it
shit
is,
right
yeah.
there before
That's a good point.
streaming.
It's like hidden tracks almost, but so there's I do think there's a few tracks that weigh it down and just kind of impact the pacing of the record. But I mean,
Yeah.
other tracks like some deep cuts, Adoration for None with Randy from Lamb of God is awesome.
Oh, okay.
Esoteric Surgery, that's one that is again a little bit more mid-paced, but I do think it's more memorable just in its kind of surprising riffs and grooves that I like. Art of Dying is, I mean, I hope this doesn't spoil anything, but it's a top. It's one of my favorite songs. Period. Like not just by Gojira. It's an all-time favorite song. Period for me.
Ah.
What did you say was the guy's name who was doing the drum intro, covering the drum intro? What's his name?
Oh, sorry, I didn't load it up. His name is Yogev Gabay. I think it's how
Yeah.
you pronounce it.
So I
Yes.
gotta see if it was him. But so I've been a drummer for about 10 years, and
Okay.
drums are my main instrument. And I remember when I
Sure.
first heard this song, "The Art of Dying." I was like, "What the fuck is that?" I was like, "How the fuck do
As anyone does.
But with me and just because when I put my mind to it, and I'm like, you know what? I want to fucking learn that. I want to learn that
Okay.
so bad. And I watched a video. It might have been that video. This is probably in like 2020.
Is
Uh,
it like got colored pictures of circles
I
talking
haven't
about the
seen it in
rides?
forever. I don't even remember. I
Okay.
haven't seen it in forever. But I watched this one video of this guy covering it because this was before. Now I think Mario has an actual playthrough of it.
Oh,
But
you would. Yeah, that only makes sense.
yeah, but this is years before that came out. So I was watching that, I was studying it, and then I remember I finally hit the point where I learned the entire song and I was able to play it all the way through, and I felt so accomplished. And
Nice.
it's one of my go-to practice songs now when I go and jam on the drum set. So
You
this
played the whole 9 minute version?
yes, yeah,
Damn.
yep. It's a
Sorry, I
lot of
don't.
learning, and
I don't
especially
want to overshadow. I don't want to overshadow you, but my cousin sent me a video link, and it's this drummer playing the entire Tool discography in one sitting. And
that's it.
I don't know.
I quit.
Yeah.
That's it.
What's your workout? I do the entire Tool
Yeah,
discography.
that's
Like,
crazy.
fuck
Yeah,
off.
I was gonna say too.
But
The
still,
hard,
like nine. This is 10 minutes of drumming, dude. That's intense.
I was gonna say so
Awesome.
the hardest part for me now because now I played that intro so many times like I don't think about it as much. But the hardest part for me
Ah,
now is the bridge with the double bass because it's just it's so like
Oh, it's yeah. You're like,
it tests my
oh,
endurance. It's more of the endurance part of that double bass bridge is the hardest part of that song for me now because I get through it and I get to that final part of the outro. I'm just like, ah, oh, fuck. I can't fucking breathe. I need water.
the human body's not built for this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so all-time favorite song for me. I love Toxic Garbage Island. The grooves in that song are
Yeah,
unreal. So it's interesting because I don't think this is their best album, but it has some of their best
no,
songs. It has some of their best songs though for me, easily. So it still brings the album up enough to where I'd probably put it like either the number 3, the number 4 spot.
it tilts the
Again,
scales, that's for sure.
yeah, again, I'll tackle my how I would rank them when I eventually do a discography ranking, which I will do hopefully right before they release an album this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
No, wait until the other new album, then add it to the list.
Yeah, I usually that's we're getting off task, but I usually I'll do it to where I put the ranking out first because then I can
Ah,
review it and then it gives me that added context. Also like I usually
hey,
need a few days with an album. So then it gives
yeah.
me more time after the release to where I don't have to I can it just helps me separate it. That's just how I do it. But I will definitely absolutely be doing one for Gojira when, like I said, when they hopefully drop a new album this year. I think this is now their longest gap between albums, or maybe tied because
Got to become it's close to it. I think.
it might have been tied because
Anyway,
I
yeah,
think it was
Magma to
yeah
Fortitude. I
I
think it's the
think
same
yeah,
gap.
that was 5 years. Yeah, true. So
Mm,
fingers crossed. But yeah, so another great album with maybe a for me at least, and I think for both of us like just a few pacing issues, but overall like it's still solid. It still has that dark
yeah,
atmosphere that you know and love from Gojira.
yeah.
But and yeah, so after this album was released in March 2009, the band announced their first North American tour, and they also shared the stage
Oh,
with the likes of Soulfly and Lamb of God. They initially
hell yeah.
planned to have a 6 month hiatus in the first half of 2010, but it ended
Oh
earlier
shit.
than expected when the band was revealed to be opening for Metallica in April of 2010. So, I mean, that's a pretty good reason to cancel a hiatus, I think, right? If you're opening for
I think I
Metallica.
remember hearing this news back in the day. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it was a pretty big headline as well
yeah,
because
I
it was
believe
like
it.
French metal outfit Gojira. At the time, they weren't like huge, but Metallica when they bring on any band to introduce them,
Yeah.
or sorry,
Mhm.
to play before them, there's a lot of hype surrounding that.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing happened for. The Sword when they were the introduction, sorry, the band before them, they got this massive hype train behind them. So yeah, I can fully understand why we're calling off hiatus. Why Metallica?
And
Oh,
I think I think James Hetfield went on record like saying he really liked Gojira's music. So and I
oh
think they've
yeah,
actually toured together multiple times now. So
oh yeah, yeah.
I think I did read that, but yeah. So they ended up returning from Metallica. Well, shortly after the band ended up making a lot of progress on their fifth album in early 2011, while continuing to tour. They collaborated with Devin Townsend on the track "Of Blood and Salt," which I remember listening to that album or that song a couple years ago. I'm not sure if you've heard that.
No,
I'm
is that
not
a
sure.
single that
I'm not sure it's even on streaming services. And I don't remember if it's,
I
I think it's a
yeah.
Devin Townsend song with Gojira on it, but I think or maybe it's the other way around because, Devin Townsend just one guy and they're a full band. I'm not sure, but it's a cool song. And I think it's
Okay,
another one of
interesting.
those hidden gems. But eventually, the band's fifth album, L'Enfant Sauvage, was released now on Roadrunner Records in June of 2012. At the time, it was their most successful album to date. What are your thoughts on L'Enfant Sauvage?
Le Font Sauvage, French for I butter my toast on both sides. It's not, but someone's got to call me out. He's like, "What the fuck do you mean?" No, it means I think what is it, the Wild One or
The
something like
Wild
that.
Child. The Wild Child.
Wild Child, that's it. Yeah, it was based after like a book or movie. I don't know. Anyway, um, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here because I know a lot of people cite this album as the best thing that they have ever done. Obviously, it's like the most successful they've had. I think you mentioned just then, but I don't appreciate. I don't like this album as much as it is. I think it's overblown. I think it's overhyped. In all honesty, there's a lot of big songs on hand, like massive, incredible songs. Obviously, like the title track or the Gift of Guilt. These incredible tracks. Uh, but then as far as like the rest of the album goes, it's like, yeah, that was fine, but it's just not as good as some of the stuff that came out before or afterwards. So in all honesty, I think I might have notched this down a bit lower than I had it previously listed. I can't remember where I actually had it sitting on my list before. So it was one of these kind of moments where when I went back to re-listen to it, I'm like, huh, for some reason I remembered this as being better. Sucks to hear, I guess. Sucks to say. Like Born in Winter, for example, like the last couple of tracks as soon as you pass The Gift of Guilt, it really falls off a cliff. Like those last three tracks, Pain is a Master, Born in Winter, and The Fall, kind of like, oh, what's this stuff going on? Born in Winter, in particular, this little melodic acoustic. I don't know what the hell kind of song that is, but Pain is a Master as well. It's like, yeah, it does its things. It does go through the motions. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel a bit off about this album in hindsight now. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think, I've actually heard, I feel like a lot of people agree with you. I've heard that I've always thought this record was actually underrated. Just from what I've heard. I don't see as much love for this record as I do for the two prior and also Magma and even Fortitude.
yeah.
Um, I fucking love this record. This is the other record for me. This is the one that's for me maybe even a tie for number one. And it might just be
Because
because
I think,
like,
sorry, I think I
yeah,
went over to Rate Your Music, and this is like the highest ranked album, I
really.
believe.
Huh.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
If
Yeah.
if that is, that's awesome. I might even agree with them. uh, but yeah, but overall, like I think this is I might be biased because, like I said, this was like the first album that I really clicked with when I checked out
Uh,
their back catalog, like I mentioned earlier. But to me, this album strikes the perfect balance because it has the darkness and the grooves and the nuance of of the two past Gojira records, the two prior Gojira records for most of the time. But it also has more of that accessibility, more of that earwormy nature of their future releases. I think that really comes
mm,
to life on, like you shouted out, the title track. I like Born in Winter too. I mean, it's almost a straight up rock song, but it's got the heavy bridge, and I like I like it because it's a little something different for them. Those kind of moodier, yeah, that moodier intro with Joe's almost like whispery vocals. So that's another one
yeah.
I really like. And as far as what I mentioned earlier about the band just their specific sound and the moods they convey in their songs really matching their lyrical themes. I think this album is the best example of that because like the melodies on Liquid Fire and the Axe, that intro and Explosion when it gets into more of like that slow paced sludgy section with that all that dissonance. Love those
Mm,
parts. Gift of Guilt. I like the Gift of Guilt. It has more of like that droning nature to it. Pain is a
yeah.
Master. I like all the songs on here. Pain is a Master is one that's like it has almost like this subtle, like sinister vibe to it, but it's almost
Yeah.
like
There's something going there.
really interesting like mood on this track that it's hard to pinpoint. And
Yeah.
to me that's interesting. The Fall, the closer, I love that song. That song is just so looming. It's so like just it just sounds so menacing. I love the melodies in it. You get the blast beats and Planned Obsolescence to start the song. That thrilling song, and a track like Mouth of Kala is nonstop grooves again, which is more of what we've heard from the past in Gojira, but it still has that moody element to it. And this is, like I said, it's very difficult which album I would put at number one. But I think the band strikes a really good balance on this record. I did a video about this record in my favorite album series where I just do like a retrospective, almost, I don't want to say review, but a discussion about an older album. So I did a full video on this record. And yeah, it's to me, it's but definitely one of their best records. And I from what I've heard at least, I feel like it's underrated. I feel like the other albums maybe get a little bit more of a spotlight than this record, at least. And maybe that's just because we live on complete opposite sides of the world. Maybe that we're hearing different things about it. But yeah, to me, it's more one of the more underrated albums from the band. And the it has a lot of darkness and a lot of emotion too. It might be Gojira's most like just it has maybe the best atmosphere out of all the Gojira records for me. I love just the atmosphere of this record.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but afterwards, they released the Flesh Alive live album and DVD,
Oh,
another
yes.
album from the band. They continued to tour, and they played on an interlude track, Tron, actually on their in their live shows, where Joe and Mario switched instruments. I thought that was a very interesting fun fact. So it
They're
was
doing a Metallica thing.
yeah, and again, it was just like it's another thing that they never did. They never recorded a studio version of, so it's something they only did live. So
Huh.
again, I would like to see if I could find that. But yeah, another live album and DVD, Les Infants Sauvages. So the plural
Yeah.
version of the album title was released in March 2014, also featuring a picture book documenting the recent tours. Joe and Mario ended up
Ah,
building a studio in New York City, Silver Cord Studio, as it was called, named after the track on Wave of Flesh. And the band started to record their next album, but recording ended up coming to a halt when Joe and Mario's mother fell ill, causing them to fly to France immediately and postpone all their shows, all their tours.
yeah.
On July 5th, 2015, Patricia Rosa Duplantier sadly passed away from cancer. And yeah, the band, like I said, they basically put everything on hiatus. But they did come back together, and eventually the self-produced Magma, the band's sixth studio album, was released in June of 2016, and it was released in honor of their mother, Patricia. It ended up becoming their
Yeah.
breakout album. It
Yeah.
skyrocketed the band, and they ended up being nominated even for two Grammy Awards, which was huge for them at the time, considering they were an underground extreme metal band, and now they're getting nominated for Grammys. So this album really did a lot for them, which is great. I mean, they dedicated it to their mother, and it was the album that blew them up. So that's pretty awesome. Anyways, what are your thoughts on Magma?
Woohoo! Magma, baby, here we come. Hot as it suggests. Wow, what an album this is. I think but I think the album that I was first introduced to when I at the beginning of this episode and I said I didn't like was from Master Sirius. If it was Magma, I think that I could have been much more it would have been much more approachable. It's I think the one of the band's more experimental kind of sounds within their catalog. They kind of do some stuff there that's a bit different. This is also a band that's I guess given the events that also preceded it, they're more reflective. They're changing their sound a lot more. Gone are the days of the screaming vocals. Mario's just kind of doing his singing style, his more melodic stuff, and it's certainly more accessible, as people would say, or maybe sell out, as others would might suggest. So, obviously, I think was it the Shooting Star is the first track off the album, and I believe that's dedicated to their mother. Very powerful song either way. Um, like you mentioned as well, though, Silvera and The Cell, these three songs just in a row, and as well, Stranded, sorry, is just amazing. Like, it's like one, two, three, four, just amazing tracks in a row off the album, particularly Stranded. And and now I'm thinking about it. When I talked about being at their concert and it was the rowing the boats, it was to Stranded at that very start.
I could have guessed that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was flying whales. Because rowing the boat whales, of course. No, as soon as Stranded came on, everyone was like, row the boat. Yeah, and yeah, like it's got that rhythm stamping kind of, do, 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 do,
Yeah.
do, do,
Really
do,
infectious
you
song.
know, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like few songs to manage to capture an audience's attention to a degree like this. You can think of like um, Queen, for example, with "We're the Champions." Sorry, "We Will Rock You." And there's a few others out there, but it's just that kind of stamp beat kind of thing that gets
Yeah.
you so primal.
Engages the crowd. Yeah.
And yeah, 100%, 100%. And it's got that very the signature snarl of the guitar as well. Kind of that high pitched squeal
Yeah.
that had
That
become,
dissonance, that ugliness. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, yeah, very, and it's almost off-putting to a point, but it's there, but it's not overbearing as some other songs in the past catalog that they had done to it. I think though, even though these first four songs are amazing, I actually like the next three songs are really I love. Yellowstone is the best instrumental they've ever done, and I believe what's the bassist's name? Sorry, I've forgotten his name.
John Michael.
Jean Michael, yeah. So I think this is where Jean Michael's really starting to become a bit more prevalent or comfortable. He almost seems to be changing his style actually over the catalog of, the band's discography up to this point because, you know, some of the albums before then is kind of just meandering, or maybe it's just because of the sound or Mario's drumming being so prevalent that you don't really hear his bass work. Yellowstone being this instrumental with his bass at the very center of the song, it's much more prevalent, and you go, oh damn, that's like really cool. And for me, I don't know if others might see it this way, but Yellowstone Magma, and Prey. I feel like that is like three parts of the same song.
You see that?
It, you know, yeah, because like you got Yellowstone obviously is like, this huge it's not even semi-dormant. It's a volcano that hasn't gone off in millions of years, and apparently when it does go off, it's gonna like end the world, right? And obviously Yellowstone goes into this magma track, and it's like, oh, the foreboding, the music as far as the guitar work goes, which is just this, atmospheric kind of
Almost
guitar
like
playing.
spooky. It's almost
It
creepy.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it feels like, the volcano starting to spit smoke. Uh, and I mean, I kind of get the vibe that it's just like ancients looking over the world and kind of like, what is going on over there? That doesn't seem right to me. This smoke, this situation is just curious but very cautionary. And I think the guitar work is incredible because the band never play guitar solos. If you've ever thought about it, they don't play guitar solos. This is like almost the closest you get into a guitar solo
Yeah.
throughout one of the songs
Mhm.
to a degree.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
But
it's got that tone
yeah,
and the licks. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely got sections to it. But then also, I think Prey is so goddamn foreboding in the drumming at the start.
Yeah, very like also very like almost genty or almost like Fear Factory like kind of with the double bass. Yeah.
And this is where I get my flow about these three tracks being a concept piece almost. So like I said, Yellowstone's talking about the volcano. Well, it doesn't talk; it's an instrumental, but it is about setting up the principles. Magma is talking like stuff's happening before obviously the volcano explodes, and then Prey. When you're listening to that, in my opinion, the music is like, here comes that cloud. I forget what they call
Apocalyptic.
that.
That's what it is. It's apocalyptic.
No, no. There's a certain word for it. There's a cloud that rushes a volcano, and it's like you can't outrun it. Like it moves that fast, and it melts your skin and shit like that. So I imagine like Prey as witnessing, the volcano just like coming, and you can't get away. That's it. That guitar drumming at the start. It's like I accept what's happening to me now.
Yeah. I never, that's an interesting point of view. I never thought about that before. You could even see that in just the titles, though. I mean, Yellowstone,
Yeah,
and then Magma comes out of Yellowstone, and then people are praying that they don't get eaten by lava. Like it kind of does make sense, and even you could even maybe throw Only Pain afterwards in there,
maybe, maybe.
just purely from the titles. But that's a good point. Magma, like I mentioned for me, like this was the first music I ever heard from Gojira, just because of Silveria and
Ah,
Stranded, and the whole album didn't hook me at first, but now I fucking love this record. This is another record that I'm
oh
crazy
yeah.
about. And I think my only criticism of it is that it's short. There's only 8 full-length tracks on here. I think it's their shortest album. The instrumentals are solid, like Yellowstone and Liberation's okay. It doesn't have as much to it. I do
No.
wish maybe the main criticism I give this album is its structure, because I wish they would have closed on Lowlands, because Lowlands has just that crushing like outro with that just
Oh,
that fucking monster of a riff. Um,
yeah, solid point.
and
Solid
same thing
point.
with the intro. I love the Shooting Star, phenomenal song. Uh, I'll come back to that song when I give my biggest compliment for the album, but it just again, it's kind of like a Roborus from Way of All Flesh. Like it's more of like a subdued intro that I Gojira's one of those bands that I think are at their best when they kick the fucking door down. Like yeah, like for me, like
FBI, bam.
yeah,
There's that meme.
like a lot of their other openers do. And
Hell
so
yeah.
I feel like maybe they should have opened with either Silvera or The Cell, and then put Shooting Star, maybe track 3, and also close the album on Lowlands. So structurally, like I think maybe it's a little bit flawed in that regard, but I enjoy every song
Yeah.
on here. Like I said, uh, what was I gonna say? So Silvera and The Cell, like they're so hooky. Like the hooks in this track
Oh.
are unbelievable. If anyone's curious, I actually did a full band cover of Silvera. It's on my channel, where I play every instrument, do all the vocals. That was it was really fun, but it was a lot of work. But it just goes to show. I mean, easy favorite song for me from them. I love the grooves and that lead section. Like you mentioned, they don't do a whole lot of solos, but the lead section on this song is the high point of the song, and maybe one of my
Mm.
favorite Gojira moments ever. It's so epic. Um, Stranded too. I mean, Stranded is just like crazy groove after crazy groove the entire time. Only Pain, similar thing there. Like all three of these songs are a bit more straightforward in their execution, like I said earlier, which is for some, in my opinion, what makes them such a good gateway band. But
Ah,
this these songs are just endlessly memorable, and those were the three songs that hooked me at first. But now I love this entire record. Like I said, my favorite part of the record is constantly that
hmm.
you alluded to. Again, it's just the atmosphere of the record. This is another record that
Oh
just has
yeah.
such a looming, menacing, apocalyptic atmosphere. The
Yes.
melodies in the Shooting Star are so melancholic, and in those verses when it's just those really stripped back drums and Joe's very like again very like kind of somber but menacing vocals at the same time, like it's such a cool atmosphere. There's so much space that I
It's
think
such
makes
a
the song.
dark sounding
It's
album as
such a
well.
dark, yeah, it's such a dark album. And that song is one of the, and another instance of that is Pray, like you mentioned, especially in like
Mm.
that really that stopping intro is really infectious. But those verses where Joe's just saying, "We pray," like this, again, same kind of vibe there, like super dark and very just melancholic, but menacing and very like again, very spacious songs. They take up a lot of space. And then, you have other tracks like the title track, like no other Gojira song sounds like this. To me, it comes off like spooky, eerie. It's lurking with those guitar chord progressions. It's such a good song.
Mm.
And the Cell, can't forget the Cell. That's the song that is probably the most techie song on the record, just
Yes.
in its drum grooves in particular. And that's another song that it sounds like straight up Gojira. Even Lowlands, like I said, it's a very melodic song most of the time until it kicks into that fucking insane groove. But this song, like, it's building tension the whole time. I love the tension that it builds. It does it so
Mm.
well. And I remember hearing a lot about at the time how people were saying, "Oh, Gojira sold out," and like I didn't have context then when this album came out because I didn't. This was the first I had heard of the band, but I don't. I disagree. Like some of the songs are, yeah, a little bit more compact, a little catchier, but this album's still heavy. Like
Yeah.
it's not that much more. It's not more melodic than even most of from Mars to Sirius. I mean, you had songs on Mars to Sirius that were almost fully clean sung, like the ones we talked about, like Global Warming. Like the clean vocals have always had a place on Gojira's music, and I think maybe they're even used best on this album because
Yeah.
because this album is just so infectious like that. So yeah, it's maybe a little bit more accessible, but it's still Gojira the whole time. It's still a kick-ass fucking album. And yeah, it's again not sure where I'd rank it. It's top four for sure. Not sure exactly where, but a record that I needed some time with, but I was finally rewarded when it finally clicked with me, and now it's again it's another record that I love through and through. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So shortly after this, in October 2020, the band shared a studio performance of a track called Inferno, which was taken from the band's live recorded album Masis del Inferno, like we discussed earlier. So they did take they I'm not sure because the album when they recorded it was split up into 15 tracks. So I'm not sure if this is one of the 15 tracks or if it's just like an excerpt of the entire record, like songs mixed together. I'm not sure. Um,
Okay.
but they released some kind of studio recording of it called Inferno. I'm not sure if it's on streaming, but they did record a studio version of it. They ended up releasing another single, Another World, in August of 2020, which ended up becoming their first Billboard charting single. Fortitude, their following album, was released the following year in April of 2021 and has since become their most successful record to date. Amazonia, in particular, was again nominated for a Grammy. What are your thoughts on Fortitude? I know it was the first album that was the album that hooked you, like you said, right?
Yeah, yeah. This was the first album that I listened to by Gojira in full, or at least the first one I at least appreciated. So coming into this, I know a lot of people will be saying selling out. That's probably the biggest keyword that we're going to put out there about this album. And I don't give a shit what people say. I think this is a fucking amazing album by the band. Yes, it's the first album that I listened to, so obviously I'm going to be looking at this one with like rose tinted glasses. But at the end of the day, man, this is an opinion on music, and this is my opinion on music. Yeah, look, Fortitude is an amazing and an incredible effort that I can see the band has poured their heart and soul into at the end of it. Because when you're thinking about it, or sorry, I should back it up by saying I'm thinking about at the end of the decade, obviously making this episode for top like 10 albums of the decade. To give you an idea, Gojira's Fortitude is going to be on that list, along with one other album for sure. Like, I think this is one of the best metal albums that has been released this decade. So that gives you a little bit of an idea as to how I
Yeah.
perceive this record.
Mhm.
And obviously the music that I find on here. It's just, it's amazing. Born for One Thing just is an incredible opening track, and then, it's just it gets the vibe going. It's just insane how infectious and groovy that song is. Sorry. While Amazonia is this incredible piece that kind of harkens back almost to Sepultura, you know what I mean, with like Roots. It's that album in particular. They got that. There's that, and this is where, sorry, this is where I was talking about Remembrance
Mm.
back on the link,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah,
had
yeah.
that
I
weird
figured, yeah, yeah.
instrument.
I
Yeah,
I put that together. Yep.
yeah. So this is where Amazonia, this is like that instrument returns, and there's a lot of instruments as well. I think that are also from that kind of South American section on this one particular song, and obviously this is talking about the massive fire that was taking place in the lungs of the world in the Amazon rainforest in 2019. And for context, the smoke at the time actually reached Australia from that fire. And then later on that year, Australia experienced one of the worst bushfires we ever have witnessed, at least in very recent times, with our 2019-2020 bushfires. And for an idea, something like 6% of all of New South Wales, which is the state that I'm in, was on fire. And New South Wales is bigger than Texas.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, the 2019, and we're talking about like these fires impacted us so bad that they think koalas may die out over the next couple of years. Like that's how bad the bushfires were. They're like endangered now.
Wow.
Like billions of animals died and shit like that. As well as some serious accidents. Like some Canadians came to fly and do like water bomb drops and stuff like that with planes, and they unfortunately crashed and
Ooh.
passed away. So there's, Amazonia, talking about the fires that took place here, kind of hits home for me as well on a different
Really?
level. Yeah, because of the fires that took place and how close they got to Sydney as well at one stage. Like we kind of thought, shit, is this really going to hit, Australia's biggest city?
Mhm.
It got to our doorsteps. Like it was pretty scary for a week or two solid. There's just a haze of smoke in the air, So yeah, it definitely brings things home, I guess, on a different level that I've never experienced with music. That aside, Another World is I think an incredible song. You mentioned this was like I think the first single from
First single, yeah,
the
and it
album
was their
itself.
first Billboard charting single. Yeah.
I think that is like an incredible sorry, Fortitude and the Chant, I think it was. Like it just flows perfectly onto each other like that. So yeah, look, it's definitely one of the best and strongest, I think. Like as far as all their songs goes, I don't feel like there's too many bad songs on here. Like every song is just incredible. Infectious Screws does its thing. I think it's really incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, and I might get some shit for this, but I wasn't as big on this record actually. I There are a few songs I like. Like for one, I like the opener "Born for One Thing." I guess the album off. It starts the album off with a lot of energy to it, which I like, especially considering, like I've mentioned, there's other tracks that maybe don't do that as well. Um, I do. I like, tracks like, Into the Storm. It's got more of that techie intro to it that I think is good. That's at least somewhat reminiscent of something Gojira would have done on their older records. And Amazonia, like I remember I liked it at the time, and I do like that. For one, I totally get like how you saying it's relatable. Like that's very valid. And I remember I really like this record or this song at the time when it came out. Now, I don't gravitate towards that song quite as much, just because I think the riffing is maybe a little bland compared to some of Gojira's older songs and some of their older singles, even. Um, and yeah, there's a few other maybe moments on here, like the closer "Grind" has a cool opening groove. But overall, I think this record doesn't have quite as much energy to me, at least compared to past Gojira records. And I think overall, I think the band has also executed more of that atmosphere better with especially their last two records. So yeah, this record, I'm not sure if I would place it last. It would be around there, but it doesn't do a whole lot for me nowadays, unfortunately. I remember I struggled a little bit with it at the time, and I've tried to revisit it actually a few times, including again for this recording. And it didn't hook me as much as other albums did, and maybe it took for me. It took a while for Magma, so I wouldn't rule out that it will eventually click for me one day, like Magma did. But for now, it's still kind of in that spot that it hasn't totally clicked with me yet. I'm not real, and it's not one that I have willingly came back to unless it's to prepare for recording or to give it like a legit actual try again. Aside from, like I said, a handful of tracks. So yeah, that's the band's most recent studio album up to this point is Fortitude. Overall, yeah, and I'm just that doesn't do a whole lot for me, but I know a lot of fans do really enjoy this album. So after the release of this record, actually the following year, the band they put out a standalone single titled "Our Time Is Now" in October of 2022. I'm not sure if you checked that song out. That was another one
Oh,
that
I remember it. I
yeah,
remember that one.
I wasn't crazy about that song. I don't know. Again, it was a little bit maybe vanilla for me for Gojira.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember when it came out and I was like, oh damn, like they're already writing new music, and when I listened to it, I was like,
it
look,
was.
it's good. It was in vain. It was similar in vain to it felt like a B-side. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, I can see that. I think they recorded it as like a soundtrack for something. Yeah. But after this, I mean, 2 years later, the band made some waves in July of 2024 when they performed to open the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. Sheila, do you remember when you first saw that? When you first heard about that? I heard about that. And I was like, what? Like I was almost confused at first. I was shocked. I'm like, Gojira opened the Olympics. That is awesome. And then I remember watching it and being like, holy shit, that is fucking awesome. But what was your first reaction to first seeing Gojira perform at the Olympics? Oh yeah.
It was insane because, like, obviously every Olympics has its moments as far as the introduction goes to these performances. I mean, hell, I was around when Sydney Olympics had their moment, and that was very symbolic. Now with France, obviously having their part, and it's just like this pure visual imagery of chaos to a degree, of the band performing on the side, flamethrowers shooting everywhere, blood spurting out. About It's a song about someone getting Anna, what's her name, Anna, um
Yeah,
what's her
forgot her name too. Yeah,
yeah,
trust
forgot her name. Oh my gosh. Anyway,
me. I'm gonna
getting the
find her real
head
quick. I'm
chop.
gonna find her real quick.
Yeah, Anna. Oh my gosh. The complete mental breakdown. But about someone getting their head chopped off. It's so downright French.
Marina Viati. Marina Viati.
Maria Sake, yes. And I say this because obviously the Olympics, this has never been done ever. You
Yeah.
know, if you go back to music in the Olympics, it's all poppy friendly crap like that. And then France is like, no, fuck that, hold my beer.
Yep.
and and there's an added degree to this because I was actually going to be in France in a couple of months after this event took place. So, it was insane watching the performance. And then a few months later, actually walking down that canal and
Awesome.
looking at the castle and being like, oh my God, that is the place where this mega this
Yeah,
video blew up
that's
and
awesome. You
like
went there in person. That's fucking awesome.
yeah, it kind of adds the context. Like it's high up there.
Yeah.
And that's I think for a lot of people that this is how they were introduced as well to the band.
Yeah. I'm
Like
sure. Yeah.
it
The
kicked the
exposure from
doors
the
open. Yeah.
Olympics is crazy,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. So many people
And
probably
could
got that from that.
and could you imagine like future Olympic committees are just like, all right, so how do we up that? Meanwhile, Scandinavia's like,
Right? Yeah.
hold our beer.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
You like metal? We can really put metal on the front page.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully, all the future Olympics try and up it. We can just get a bunch of metal bands performing at the Olympics. How sick would that be?
Because a fun fact, actually, I forgot what country it is, but in the band Enslaved,
Oh yeah.
they were hired by their country for a tourism promotion, playing music of their style. Like they really embrace that black metal community side of
Yeah.
things.
That's
They
that's
love it. They
that's
actually
really
pay
cool.
the bands some money just to do their music.
Yeah. It's after so anyways after the Summer Olympics, the band did release a studio version of Mea Culpa featuring Mariana Viati. It was released digitally in August of that same year. It was once
Yeah.
again nominated for a Grammy, and this time it won, which was great. I remember seeing the nominations that year and being like, God, I hope Gojira wins. And
Yeah.
because like it was either them or I think Knocked Loose with Poppy was on there too, which that would have been a valid win too. But I'm so glad Gojira won. I was like,
That would
thank
have been, yeah, that's a tough one.
I was like, fuck yeah, it was close, but yeah, Gojira easy. Like they played the fucking Olympics. I mean, come on, like that
Yeah, give
that
it to him at this
alone,
stage.
that alone beats out anything that was recorded in a studio. So
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
that is the band's entire history up to this point. They've been saying they're making an album, like we've already alluded to. Like hopefully it comes out this year. Um, but now we're going to get into our top three Gojira songs.
Yeah.
So Chili, we're gonna start this off with your pick for number three.
My number three song is going to be Born for One Thing.
Okay.
I absolutely love Fortitude. I believe it is their best album. And for me, when I listen to that very first notes within Born for One Thing, it is just like, it brings in such emotion and like it resonates deep within me. I was actually going to try and pick something a bit more of a deep cut, just considering the next two songs. But when I started really thinking about it, I'm like, how can I go past this track? It does so much for me. It really is one of my favorite songs of the band. Obviously, I've named it at number three. So, I think that while you could certainly describe it as much more accessible. I think that's a great aspect of it. I don't think they completely severed the ties of the past either, because there's that guitar wow parts and whatever. It is ruthless as well, but it's more groove infectious, groove metal friendly, I guess you could almost say.
Yeah.
So I think Born for One Thing is one of the obviously my third pick for the best songs.
Okay. My pick is actually on a very similar vein. I'm gonna give it to Silvera. Another
Ah,
single, another big single. And like I mentioned earlier, it's just everything about this song. It's got a really like good, well executed, clean chorus, which is unconventional for Gojira. The opening groove is sick, and just the way the song takes it, and especially how they transform it in that second verse. Um, all these parts are especially in my brain because I learned them like on every instrument, and I was listening to this song so much for that. And like I said, the fucking bridge section with that solo is just out of this world, so epic, like easily a best Gojira moment to date, and just the constant grooves in this song. It's maybe their absolute hookiest, catchiest song to date. Maybe we'll have to see, but that's my pick for number three. What's your pick for number two?
mea culpa.
Ah, okay, okay, wow, okay,
That song is insane. I think there's a massive thing. While we obviously talked about seeing that song, I believe there's a little bit more to it that is yet to be seen, I guess, as far as the metal community. Because yeah, this was the first time a heavy metal act was on the front stage, or any stage really, for the Olympics, which is seen by millions and millions of people. So for me, I think there's a lot of weight now within the band, or behind this song, that kind of introduces them as a band that could be almost like the next Metallica as far as prominence, as
yeah,
far as popularity. They have a potential to do so,
yeah,
within their music. And growing on the, obviously that depends on what the next album's going to be like. But I think Mea Culpa was an amazing blending of their style with this operatic singing, and the visual keys really were something else. Like, it's just that iconic imagery of just the band being as metal as fuck, we should say.
yeah. Oh
Standing
yeah.
outside of a castle, like winds billowing, just
I genuinely think that's like a top three metal moment period easily. Like in the history of metal.
oh yeah, yeah, like that would be, yeah, that's definitely it. Like, I think if you're
Yeah.
gonna go through like top three metal moments, Metallica taking the stage in Russia, in like '91,
Okay. Yeah.
in front of 1.1 million people. Like, Pantera was there, you know what I mean? Like, that was a big moment.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what I would probably suggest for number two, but definitely Mea Culpa would
Yeah.
be like
It's up there. Yeah.
number
It
three.
was iconic. It really was. Valid pick
It
too.
was
Yeah.
huge.
Hmm.
So that's my number two. I think it's this perfect blending of showing what the band can do, and this interesting blend with the operatic moment. And I think that like perfectly came together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For sure. My number two, I'm gonna give to Toxic Garbage Island. A song from, like I said, Way of All Flesh. Like it's definitely not my favorite album, but it has some of their best songs, and this is one of them. And it just again, the grooves in this song are unreal. Like that, it's got that kind of techier intro, and then it just explodes into that main riff, and just God, everything about it. And then it's got kind of like those more mid-tempo parts. The main groove comes back at the end of the song while Joe's letting out these vicious screams and God, this
Mm.
is a fucking beast of a song, and it's this or Silvera. I'm putting this number two, and I stand by it. But out of
Mm.
this track and Silvera, these are the two catchiest, absolute like most earwormy songs I think of Gojira's career. And with this track, this is still on overall one of their more nuanced and maybe their most proggy album to date. But like this is a high point on it simply because of just how it goes straight for the fucking jugular. It's no nonsense. It's got the fucking riffs, and it just a beast of a song. So
Yeah.
that's my pick for number two. Before you give your number one Gojira song, feel free to shout out some honorable mentions. Otherwise, let's hear your number one song.
Oh, definitely. As far as the honorable mentions go, I'm pretty sure we've covered a lot of them. But yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of stuff will be off the Magma record, pretty
Mhm.
much.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to share out a bunch of those ones. I got a funny feeling our number one is going to be the same.
Mm.
Just a funny feeling.
That's never
My
happened before.
number,
That's never happened before so far in the series. So we'll see.
here we go. My number one is The Art of Dying.
Okay.
And okay, it's not. Well, maybe who knows? But The
I'll
Art
do a
of
reveal.
Dying.
I'll do a reveal. But let's hear your thoughts.
Okay. Okay. So the art of dying, like we mentioned, like I mentioned previously, has this crazy drum fill intro. I think that it's so weird and technical, and showcases Mario's, abilities on the drums. Like he is such a core sound of the band, and I remember someone reading in the comments like, "I love Mario's drumming skills, but damn, does he make me feel stupid as a drummer?" Like he's just next
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
And
Valid.
this is yeah. I remember he did an interview and he's like, I take a lot of Abe Cunningham influence into my sound, and I think he also mentioned Morbid Angel's drummer as well, which is an interesting one. But and I think this is where Mario and the Meshuggah influence kind of comes into play because obviously, Meshuggah, the drums are its own instrument, and with this with Gojira, they are the same kind of, it's almost the same. They are an instrument that is very prominent and very much like taking the rhythm and at the forefront. I also have to admire the lyrics that Mario delivers on here, which are just so like the brutal reality of death, that it's not this glorious thing. It is like raw. It is,
Beautiful.
and
Yeah.
at the end of it, at the end of it, this person just lying in a bed trying, like I close my eyes. I haven't slept in so long. It's like
It's the way to let
death.
all go. That's my favorite line of the song. It's the way to let all go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like death is not a nice thing, and there is no glory about it. It's so grounding, and it goes back to your original point. Reality is probably the worst thing out of it. And I think the Art of Dying is such a grounding song, scarily so, that it's like it puts the fear of death in you.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Take no possession. You
Um,
would rather travel light. Yep.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think like the Art of Dying is the best song that they have ever written,
All right.
hands down.
Well, my pick for number one is actually also The Art of Dying. So it is, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the first time this ever happened on the series where we share a number one pick. But yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, this song it has a special place in my arms and my legs because I spent so long practicing it and playing it, and there was maybe in my 10-year history of being a drummer, I don't know if I've ever been more satisfied to nail a song than I was when I nailed this fucking song. And like the song itself, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's the perfect balance of literally everything. It's super techy and very unique in that sense, just like the time signature and just the way the notes are split up, especially on the drums. And then you get the really like spacious, full sounding double bass section. The song almost has three acts when you think about it. It's got the intro part, the techie intro. It's got that
Mm.
really full sounding double bass part that tests my endurance every time I play it. And then And then it's got the closing part that's more of like that somber chord progression that just sends the song off with an absolute bang. So yeah, this was actually a fairly easy pick for my number one. It just like I said, it's got a special place in my heart for that reason, just because of the impact it had on me as a drummer.
Mm.
So yeah, and I guess I'll shout out some honorable mentions too. Flying Whales and World to Come, both from Marcia
Oh yeah, of
Sirius.
course.
Vacuity from Wave of Flesh. Explosia, Liquid Fire, and Mouth of Kala from L'Infant Sauvage, and Stranded from Magma. So, ironically, like my top two albums from Gojira are from Marcia Sirius and L'Infant Sauvage, and my top three songs didn't have any songs from those records. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. It really is.
It's interesting how it plays into it, like very odd as well.
Yeah,
But
and
mm,
like I said, Way of All Flesh, not my favorite album, but it's got easily some of the band's best songs.
yeah.
Yeah, now before we leave, we're going to talk about maybe what do we want to hear from the band next in the future, and also any closing thoughts we have on Gojira. So, Chili, what do you have to say? What would you like to hear on the next Gojira album, and what are some of your closing thoughts?
Yeah, look, this is a bit more of a pull that grenade pin out. You know what I mean? Like, where do would like to see the band? I like I've mentioned, obviously I enjoy Fortitude and the album that it was. I think it's one of the best albums they've probably done. So I don't mind this new angle, this new position that the band have undertaken. But at the same time, I wouldn't mind them trying out a little bit more heavier stuff, going back to that magma kind of sound, but still retaining the groove that they've managed to find on Fortitude. I think I think there'd be a great line between these two albums that they could probably find on here. And hopefully, if that single that they released was nothing like the album, then it's probably a good thing. Not saying that's a terrible single. It's just like it's pretty. Our time is now. It's just a bit forgettable at the end of the
Yeah,
day. You know what I mean?
agreed.
So yeah, like I mean, if the album doesn't sound like Our Time Is Now, we're probably in for a good time. I'd like to see the groove that is retained on, you know, um, Fortitude mixed with a bit more of a heavier style. I'd like to
Sure.
see that, but I at the same time, I trust wherever the band goes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that sounds like a bit of a cop out,
No,
not
it's
really a
true. No,
solid answer.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
actually going to say something very similar to that.
because
Um,
this is a band that's like done no bad albums at the end of the day, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I agree. Yeah, even the albums that I think are weaker, I still think are good. Honestly,
Mm,
this is fucking Gojira at the end of the day. Like like they're so talented. Like they're not going to put anything out that's bad. The worst is just going to
exactly.
be like slightly underwhelming compared to other releases. I think at this point.
Mm,
But I totally agree with you. I would love to hear a record that's reminiscent of their modern material in a sense that it's hooky and it maybe has more of an atmosphere to it, which was, like I said, my favorite quality about Magma and L'Infant Sauvage. But it'd be thrilling to see them go back heavier. Even incorporate, I think it would be sick even if they incorporate some more of that death metal influences that was on their first two albums. Like if they can make, I think if they can make a record that's almost like a compilation of all the sounds they've had throughout their career, that would be
mm.
sick. And I could see them doing that too. I really could. Even and
I
maybe
don't know if
like
I.
the death metal stuff, like it wouldn't be as prominent, but to have a few songs like I think Plain Obsolescence from L'Infant Sauvage, great example of that because it's got the blast beat, it's got the death metal influence, something like that, and then you can have the more melodic, proggy nature of Mars to Sirius and Way of All Flesh, and you could have more of like that more straightforward jackhammering sound of Magma and Fortitude. So I do think they could strike a balance, like you said. I think that was the word you used, strike a balance where like they
Mm,
can pull the best elements out of their past records and make that into its own thing. So that's what I would pick.
yeah,
Yeah,
kind of like Into the Storm or whatever it is on
yeah,
Fortitude. Like
that's
that
a
was
good
like
example.
you know.
That's a good example. Absolutely. And
Mm.
before we go, do you have any more closing thoughts on Gojira?
You know what? I think that would be an interesting one. Maybe this adds to the point that we're just talking about. I would love to actually see the band do a split EP or joint EP, maybe similar to what like the Melvins did with Napalm Death, and maybe tee up with like Mastodon,
Oh yeah,
because
that'd be
they work, they do a lot of tours together, and
yeah.
I reckon if they just did like a 4-track EP, in doing both styles, that'd be really interesting as fuck to listen to. I don't
Yeah.
know,
It's funny you mentioned that
the
too because this will be episode 8, but episode 7 that premieres at the time of recording tomorrow, but the time this goes up 2 weeks ago was about Mastodon.
oh
So
hell yeah.
yeah, so I think that would be fucking sick. Even just a single, if they did kind of like Mastodon did that with Lamb of God a few years ago or a couple years
Oh
ago.
yes, yeah.
I actually wasn't crazy about that song, but if they did it with Gojira, that would be God, that would be fucking sick.
But yeah, like I guess this is a band. Like I guess my final thoughts about him is they have the possibility to be launched into the stratosphere and be like this one of the most prevalent metal bands of the 21st century. Hell, they are, to be honest. They're interesting because they're not metalcore, but they have metalcore influences. They're
Yeah.
not they're not gent, but they have these gent influences. They're not death, metal, but they have these death metal influences.
Mhm.
They've made a menagerie of these styles that have been prevalent and raised and all that stuff, and really made something or strive to find something in between, focusing instead away from guitar solos into more the grooves, the hooks of the songs, stuff like that. So and I think that's really interesting out of a band, as far as metal goes. So fuck the breakdowns. Here's the groove. This is
Yeah.
what we got, and I
There's
think that's
there's
the
no one else
best
that
part
sounds
of
like
it.
Gojira. No one else sounds like Gojira at the end of
No
the day.
one sounds like Gojira.
They
Absolutely
are
unique
they're their
band.
own thing. They're their own thing.
And that's hard to do in this day and age. It's like
Oh no.
saying, who sounds like Deftones? No one sounds like Deftones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shout
People
out to Deftones. I'm seeing them tonight, by the way. Fuck yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm jealous. I think people try to sound like Deftones, but it doesn't quite
Oh,
it doesn't actually sound like Deftones.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's it for this episode of Deeper Dives. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to Chewy's channel. He does a lot of great content. He has his own series, Live Listen Race, that he's bringing back. Right? We just
Correct.
recorded something for that. He does
Yeah.
his 5 minute reviews. So give his channel a shout. Give him his channel. Subscribe to my channel too for more rock and related content and album reviews. And until next time, we'll see you guys next time for another episode of Deeper Dives. And until later, peace.